It's a great privilege and honour, on behalf of St Benet's Hall in the University of Oxford, for me to join in this acclamation of one of the great religious leaders of the last century on his 100th birthday, and especially in this period of confinement, to salute one who broke down barriers. The academic in me is tempted to salute the scholar in Karol Wojtyla, the student priest who at the Angelicum in Rome wrote a PhD on the doctrine of faith of St. John of the Cross. Not content with one doctorate, he went on to Krakow, where he wrote his Habilitationsschrift on the German philosopher Max Scheler, on the possibility of constructing a Christian Catholic ethic on the basis of the Scheler system. The influence on him of Scheler's thought was long-lasting, particularly in the areas of philosophical anthropology, human dignity, and the meaning of suffering. He could have continued his career as an academic philosopher, teaching ethics at the Jagiellonian University or in Lublin. But with two research degrees by the age of 34, there came other, perhaps higher calls. A bishop by 38, an archbishop by 44, cardinal by 47, this is an astonishing cursus honorum, and a tribute to the perceptive powers of Pope Paul VI, who had recognized and rewarded his talents. When elected in 1978, aged only 58, the youngest pontiff for 100 years, and the first non-Italian for 4.5 centuries, the name he took was partly an expression of continuity with Paul VI, whom he was also to imitate and to outstrip in his engagement with other faiths and his restless globe-trotting. During his studies, he had acquired skill in a dozen languages, to which he later added Hebrew, and he was to make full use of this polyglot facility across the 26 years of his papacy, the second longest in modern times. His extraordinary charisma as a communicator, perhaps honed in his youthful experience as actor and playwright, served him well, drawing crowds of millions all over the world. Some of the crowd sizes are unprecedented, right from his first foreign trip to Mexico, where some 18 million are reported as having greeted him. On his first visit to Ireland, 1/3 of the population of the whole republic attended the opening mass. Speaking as I do from a community of students, I feel that his particular success was his outreach to the young, instituting World Youth Days, which have been held all over since 1984. Attendance rose from the hundreds of thousands in the US, Canada, Australia, and Panama to millions in Italy, Germany, Spain, Poland, France, Brazil, and Argentina, culminating in the 5 millions in Manila. This galvanizing of the younger faithful was part of a relentless campaign of pastoral and diplomatic travel, taking in over 120 countries. Each visit, as one commentator noted, being a marathon which left his papal suite limp but made his adrenaline flow. Some countries were being visited for the first time by a reigning pope, others for the first time in centuries, including France and Germany. Each visit marked by the humble gesture of kissing the ground. He paid particular attention to visiting developing countries, whether in Africa, the Americas, Asia, or Oceania. He was a tireless champion of the developing world in its dealings with the economic power of the West. He regularly deplored the North-South divide, calling for a new global trading agreement that would favor poor farmers over rich consumers. And he supported efforts to write off third world debt. His campaign against poverty climaxed in the Jubilee year of 2000, where he joined the Drop the Debt movement with Bono, Bob Geldof, and Muhammad Ali. Many of his foreign visits were made in a spirit of ecumenism, promoting greater understanding and dialogue between Christian denominations. Thus, he sought early dialogue with the Orthodox patriarchs, with the Armenians, with the Coptic Pope. He reached out to Lutherans on the 500th anniversary of the birth of Luther. During the Jubilee year of 2000, he held an ecumenical service to launch the Week of Prayer for Christian Unity, inviting leaders of all Christian religions to take part. 22 Christian leaders attended, along with the World Council of Churches, who participated with him in the opening of the Holy Door of the Basilica of San Paolo fuori le Mura. Perhaps more significant still were his initiatives in interfaith dialogue. He expressed his admiration for Buddhism and was visited several times by the Dalai Lama. On a visit to Damascus, he was the first reigning pope to enter and pray in a mosque, as he was the first to pay an official visit to a synagogue. He asserted of Muslims that, together with us, they adore the one merciful God, and he referred to Jews as our elder brothers in the faith of Abraham. Having been brought up near Auschwitz and having known many Jews in his youth, he went soon after his election to visit the concentration camp, the first pope to do so. After establishing formal diplomatic relations with the State of Israel, he was able in the Jubilee year to make a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, visiting the memorial to the Holocaust and praying at the Western Wall. His breadth of work for interfaith dialogue can be judged early in his pontificate, when he instituted a World Day of Prayer for Peace in Assisi, attended by 160 representatives of all major world faiths, as well as African and Native American animists, Zoroastrians, and Baha'i. We can also admire in him the campaigning pontiff on social and political issues, with his principled stand for peace and freedom, and his stand against war, genocide, dictatorship, the death penalty. The impact of his visits on dictatorships and on communism is justly celebrated. Such campaigns helped to earn him the Presidential Medal of Freedom and to be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. The impact of his visit to the UK almost 40 years ago is perhaps emblematic of his papacy. As the Falklands War loomed, he went ahead with the visit, the first by a reigning pope, meeting the Queen, whose namesake had been excommunicated and declared deposed. There were so many gestures of reconciliation. The Pope and Robert Runcie as brother primates, kneeling together in Canterbury Cathedral before where Becket was murdered. The Mass before 300,000 in Coventry, the city he described as devastated by war but rebuilt in hope. Meeting the chief rabbi in Manchester, worshipping at both the Anglican and Catholic cathedrals in Liverpool, meeting Protestants and Catholic in Edinburgh. As Dr. Runcie remarked, ecumenism is now irreversible. We have blocked the way back, and we can all pray that the process is indeed irreversible. On the visit, he called insistently for peace in Northern Ireland, as he had on his visit to the Republic 3 years before. On my knees, I beg you to turn away from the paths of violence and return to the ways of peace. Many think his appeals sowed the earlier seeds of peace and helped the process, which eventually led to the Good Friday Agreement. At St. Benet's, we can echo the chorus of Santo Subito, which led to his canonization, and we can take pride that an alumnus of the Hall and monk of Ampleforth, Cardinal Basil Hume, created cardinal by Paul VI, was the leading English Catholic who greeted Pope John Paul at Gatwick Airport. There is another Benedictine connection. The Pope's birthday on the 18th of May will be the anniversary of the recapture in 1944 of the Benedictine mother house of Monte Cassino by British and Polish troops. After months of battle and bombing and awful loss of life, a Polish detachment made it to the top and raised a Polish flag over the abbey ruins. The image of that flag and the knowledge that the abbey has been rebuilt, its treasures, monastic community, and worship restored are powerful symbols of the peace building and reconciliation for which John Paul II so tirelessly campaigned. Santo subito.